everybody. Thanks for coming to today's episode of The Outlet, Lunch and Learn with SheTek's Extraordinary Women. Today's episode is the 10th episode in our ongoing SheTek webinar series, which is a great milestone for us. At SheTek, we are so proud that we are able to create these webinars to help you all with strategies and support, negotiation, leadership, risk-taking, and more. It's only through your contributions, questions, comments, emails that we're able to keep growing the outlet into the webinar that you love to plug into. Thank you so much to anyone who's here today that's been a part of our previous episodes of the outlet. We really couldn't do it without you. Let's do the next slide. There we go. I'm Meg Virag, Program Coordinator and Community Manager at SheTek, and I'll be your host today. As I just mentioned, we'll be recording today's webinar, and we'll post a link to that recording on the SheTek Power community as soon as it's available. You can also find past episodes of The Outlet, the 2020 SheTek Virtual Conference, and our recent Looking Forward to 2021 with Positivity workshop at the SheTek Community under the resources link at the top of the page. Stop by and check out our archive. Right now, everyone who's attending is muted by default. We'll have time for a Q&A with Connie and Chaya after today's talk. You can submit all questions in the Q&A or the chat box at the bottom of your screen. We'll let you know that it's been received and be sure to get you those questions answered by the end of today's session. Today's episode of The Outlet is brought to you by SheTek, a nonprofit organization registered in New Jersey dedicated to increasing the number of women in the tech staffing pipeline. SheTek is sponsored by PamTen, a tech staffing and solutions company based in Princeton, New Jersey. You can find out more about PamTen at PamTen.com, and I'll talk more about them in just a few moments. Today's episode is titled Breaking into Tech Leadership. We're talking to two extraordinary women today, our own Chaya Pamula, SheTek founder, PamTen president and CEO, and founder of SOFKIN, and Dr. Connie Watson, leadership and organization coach, founder of Connie Watson Consulting, and senior coach at the Harding & Company. Chaya Pamula is SheTek's co-founder and the co-founder, CEO, and president of PamTen, our sponsor here on the outlet and SheTek's patron sponsor. PamTen is an award-winning global IT services and staffing organization conceptualizing innovative software products and solutions for its clients and overseeing them from development to implementation. Through Chaya's work leading PamTen, Chaya saw for herself the challenges of hiring women in the tech field. Though jobs were available, Chaya didn't see many applications from women in tech and went on to found SheTek to increase that number of women in the staffing pipeline. Chaya combined her business acumen and her passion for charity to found SOFKIN, a nonprofit organization that operates in the U.S. and India and creates loving and caring homes for over 100 children in need. You can learn more about SOFKIN at sofkin.org. Dr. Connie Watson, I scrolled down too much. Dr. Connie Watson is an organizational development consultant focusing on leadership development, employee learning and engagement, diversity and inclusion, and organizational culture. Connie consults with startups to Fortune 100 companies and has experience in the education and nonprofit sectors. She's also a facilitator for Surge and Grow, which is a program helping founders and CEOs grow their companies. Connie has published and presented her work at a number of orgs, including the American Psychological Association, the Society for Human Resource Management, the International Transformative Learning Conference, and at Teachers College Columbia University. Connie is certified in Appreciative Inquiry, MBTI Personality Assessment, NCBI Diversity Training, and has been a training evaluator for the American National Standard Institute. She received several awards, including an endowed teaching chair from Delta College and a Staff Excellence Award from Central Michigan University. She's on the board of Learn Long Institute, a think tank that promotes research and education and adult learning and leadership. Connie has been a faculty member, department chair, faculty and staff professional development director, as well as an independent organizational consultant during her career. She's taught psychology, education, human resource management, and more over in various universities over the course of her career. We're so glad that you can join us today, Connie. Before we start our chat today, we do have a couple quick questions for everyone to answer. I'm going to pop it right up on here on your screen. We're curious about where you currently are in your career path and if you're currently pursuing a leadership role. We have options for student, entry level, associate, mid-senior level, senior level, C-level, retired, and something else if maybe I forgot to mention something. And also, we're curious if you're currently pursuing a leadership role. Yes, no, or if you plan to in the future. I can see those popping in. It's fun watching this. It always makes me feel like I'm on a Family Feud or something, watching all the levels going up and down. Give it just another minute or two. We've got people across all stretches here. All right, great. Give it about another 2 more seconds. All right, great. I'm going to share the results with everyone, just so you're curious. If you can see that most of us here today are at the mid-senior level. Maybe probably have to drag it over. We have 2 students here, 1 entry level. Most of us are here at mid-senior. And 5 of us are something else. I should reach out to you folks later on and find out where you're at. And then most of us here today are indeed pursuing leadership roles. And the next one is I plan to in the future. So that's very exciting. Very glad to hear that from all of you. All right. So now I'm going to drop down my share. I'm going to pop off my camera now, so that way then Chaya and Connie can take it away.
Thank you, Meg.
Thank you, Meg. Glad to be here today.
Great. Connie, so nice to have you for this topic, especially when I see the attendees, the results of this polling. There are really, it's the right audience that we have today for this topic.
Absolutely.
So welcome. And, I want to make this more interactive and conversational, and also give the opportunity for people to ask questions. So I know SheTek promotes more on the technology side. We are looking at promoting women into leadership positions and also helping women to get into tech careers. But still, leadership is pretty broad. It's the same principles across any industry. So the first thing I would like to discuss about is, there are many techniques one has to apply when they are trying to move up in the ladder into the leadership positions, because there could be variety of roadblocks that one can come across. And personally, I came across many, and I started my career as a developer, and then I grew into different roles. And it is possible, right? So everyone has a different way of achieving their goals. But there are some techniques, that you, and especially you coming from that experience, be able to share with us. It would really help for people to first being able to identify the roadblocks, that it is a roadblock, and then be able to apply certain techniques to overcome that roadblock as they're making progression. So would you like to share some of your experiences and thoughts?
Sure, Chaya. Thank you. I think usually when I start talking to people about roadblocks, I think it's really helpful to really concretely know where you want to move to. What are the next steps in that organization that you want to achieve? And so then you can see, are you hitting those steps or you're not hitting those steps? And if you're not hitting, then you can start thinking about the roadblocks or opportunities. So for example, let's say that you're not getting some high profile assignments. You think that would be a next step in getting a promotion, right? Be seeing more company-wide projects, or a project with a large firm that is bringing in a lot top revenue. And so if you can specifically ask to be part of some of those projects, you can identify the projects you want to be a part of. If you know some things are coming down the pipeline and put your name out, then if you still aren't included, then you can start to have those specific conversations. So I think the more specific, the better. It's much better if I came to you, Chaya, as one of your employees and said, remember, I said I really wanted to be part of this project, and you said you'd consider me, and then I wasn't picked. Can you help me understand what I need to do, what I need to learn, so next time I'm more likely to be picked, Chaya, can be a much more effective conversation than, Chaya, I'm not being invited into these projects. Invite me. You know, have you had conversations like that with some of your employees?
I've had, and I will tell you, when I was aspiring for more responsible roles in the organization, I always went up to my manager and asked, can you consider me for this opportunity? I was always ready, looking out for opportunities in the organization, right? And the first thing you said about is you should know where you want to go. I think that's the planning part. I think it's important for everyone to start planning their career path, right? So then you can look at in the organization whether you have that path available for you. And also having these constant dialogues with my manager, it really helped me, because there were opportunities I used to go straight up and ask, I know I'm busy. I have, first thing they'll tell you is, oh, you're already on 2 different projects. You may not have time. And you got to assure that, yes, I'm ready to stretch and then learn. So if you give that confidence, I think they can give you those opportunities. And in our company, it's very open for people to really seek for additional work. And I always say, you got to be able to wear multiple hats. Then only you can survive in this company, because you can't say I only want to do one thing, right? So as you rightly said about opportunities, it's important to look for those and then have that dialogue, which helped me in my own career.
Yeah, I also think your supervisor obviously is a key to having a strong relationship. I would also add, making sure you're having a mentor, maybe in a different department, someone who has a different perspective, maybe someone who you would like to emulate or learn some of their knowledge around, and ask for a formal mentoring relationship, and that's okay. And and you can lay out, okay, can we meet once a month? I'd like to discuss these topics. I need help in these areas, and then you start your conversations.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I agree with you. Mentorship is so important. I think I have a couple of questions around that as well. So, in many women, I mean, I'm not saying men don't, even men as well, struggle with imposter syndrome. It's my favorite topic, actually, especially when when you have to you get a new role and you're supposed to be presenting something, or you're in front of the C-level executives. As you're moving up the ladder, you're more exposed to higher positions, and you need to have that level of confidence and the comfort to be able to talk to them and be able to present, and also prove to be get that credibility and prove to be successful. So this imposter syndrome is something that's not just women deal with it, even men have that. So I really am interested in learning from your experience, if you have come across those situations, and how do you help to overcome that?
Yeah, it's so interesting you said that, because I've had it many times, right? But one in particular stands out. I went back to school. I had my master's, and I decided to work on my doctorate. And so I had gone to state schools. I had gone to a small school for my master's, and I got into Columbia University for my doctorate degree. And I was sitting around a table with a cohort with like 22 other people. At the time, I was teaching at the community college level, and I'd never done any research. I'd never been to an Ivy League school, and all these people around me are like, "I work for Johnson and Johnson," and "Oh yeah, I did Harvard in my undergrad," and they're all going around. And I'm like, "Oh my god." Like, what am I doing here? So I think the first thing is just to really learn about the other people. But if you take away the focus on yourself and the other people who have been in that role, or who are your peers, and start having conversations with them, like, what got you here? What did you learn? What do you love about your job? And you start to see similarities. You start to have these conversations with the other people, and you're like, I'm not so different than them. right? I read the same kind of things. I've learned similar lessons. I've done similar work, and even though maybe it's been in a different context, or they have a different background, they're older, they're younger, they're men, you're women, I think you start to see similarities as you build those relationships. And the other is just giving yourself being patient with yourself, and giving yourself a moment to be in this new role, this new place where you have an imposter syndrome, and see how it goes 3 months down the road, 4 months down the road, and let yourself kind of sink into it. And lastly, I would say I am a big over preparer. I used to get test anxiety too. And so even though I knew the material, I knew I would have more confidence if I prepared 1 more hour, right? If I worked on something just a little longer. If I read just one more article about a subject I was going to present about. And personally, that kind of overlearning just helped me feel more confident, that when I went in front of an audience or started having discussions with my peers.
Oh, great points, Connie. And my personal experience, I mean, I used to be I am still very shy in social gatherings and networks. And being an entrepreneur, I'm forced to get into networking. And I had to learn all these things, right? Because I was one of those people who would be just keeping quiet unless somebody comes and says hello to you. So one thing I learned is when people don't know who you are, and you're not part of the culture there, and you are somebody new, they also have similar hesitation like us. They won't come and talk to you. I learned that it's important that we break up that ice. You go forward and be a deep listener, talk to them and understand and learn from them, and that learning itself builds the bonding. That's something I learned. You don't have to feel that you don't know about this person or this culture or about this company. You just need to be open-minded to learn. As you're learning and talking to people, you build that bonding.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great points. I mean, I could relate to what I went through in my personal career. So Connie, you are an organizational consultant and a leadership coach. So I just curious to know, one, how do you help people in the organization um, in terms of being more successful, and the teams would be high performing teams, and there's a lot more productivity, efficiency in the organization. So what do you do to help achieve that?
So I start with what you, I think, talked about last month, setting like purpose and goals. So being very clear on the organization's purpose, your team's purpose, your shared goals. So really grounding you and getting clear on that, having those conversations. And then the how is just as important as what you want to achieve. And so then being very clear on, are there values that we want to live? Are there guiding principles that we adhere to? Are there expectations from the CEO, from leadership? And so, for example, I work with a company right now that does a lot of work with diversity and inclusion, and they have guidelines for diversity and inclusion. And I'm part of a team who's helping make sure those live. And so in our leadership training, we talk about, what does it mean to step up and step back? Always be balancing that. For example, that's a guideline. Another guideline is no shaming and blaming yourself for others, right? When there's a problem, let's not move into shame and blame. Let's move into problem solving. So having these discussions about, what does that look like to live this value? Where do we get stuck? Right? Is there a norm going on in this organization that's detrimental to us? And really having these deep conversations about what's really going on. I love this idea of debriefing the meeting after you have a meeting. So you have a meeting, you're working on a project, and then just take 10 minutes to say, how did that meeting go? Where did we get stuck? Did everybody get their voices shared? Right? Were there things that we missed? How can I help you feel supported? What resources do you need going forward? Right? So talk about the process by which you interact, build relationships, and do the work. because you can really get stuck and not doing effective work because people are doing or saying things that are going against the values and the purpose of the organization. People feel in threat or disrespected during conversations. And sometimes it's not meant, people don't mean to do that, but the impact is real. So let's talk about, I can't do my best work if I'm feeling threatened, ignored, and disrespected. So let's talk about if that's happening. And how do we more often help people feel motivated, confident, and creative? What are the behaviors? What are the conversations look like? How are people rewarded in the organization so that that happens more often? And so you get into some really specific work when you start asking those questions.
Yeah, I can relate to one of my experiences, where I felt that I was disrespected in a meeting setting, right? Especially it was a scenario where I was working in a 5,000 employee organization, being just single woman.
Wow.
And men were not used to even looking into my eyes and speaking. They would not even look at my face when they're talking. And I have this habit that when I speak, the other person has to look into my eyes. Otherwise, I lose concentration. I can't focus. So I was struggling with that, and there was a time I actually had said it loud in the meeting room. That I said, I need people to look at me when I'm talking. Otherwise, I cannot say out clearly. I cannot express myself well because I just feel that you're ignoring me and you being disrespectful. When you said that, it occurred to me that it's how important it is to, rather than sulking the situation and sitting quiet, it's how important it is to go and clear it out, talk to people how you like, because you also need to be able to express the environment that you would like in order to be able to be productive. So it's important to express that. And I've gone through that experience in my life, and it works, really works well.
What I love about that story, Chaya, is you're specific, right? So when you want to give feedback, you were specific. Like, when you aren't looking at me, I really need you to look at me when I'm talking. But then you also hit the impact on you,
Right.
and I think that's also important. So if you're asking for a certain behavior, then let them know why you need it. And you did that so well. Like, I really need you to look at me because otherwise I'm not feeling confident. I'm feeling ignored. I start to stumble. I can give such a faster, clear presentation if you join me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so I think that you just hit the nail on the head. Specificity and impact statement.
Yeah, I agree, Connie. It's important to express. I think it took a lot of gut for me to do that. I had to even practice it.
I bet. I practice all the time in front of the mirror, everything. Yes.
So that's a good segue to my next question, actually. So in an organization, you come across many challenges, right? So sometimes we don't even recognize that being a challenge. You just accept it, right? Because you think that's the norm or it's usual. So it could be a systemic problem. So
Yes.
are there any techniques to identify where it's really a systemic problem and something that we need to identify that being a problem and take action on it? So how do you identify? You get kind of, get into the cultural thing and you think, oh, this is how the organization operates. So you got to change that and identify that problem and be able to address it.
Absolutely. And, when I'm talking to SheTek, to women, I can use an example around that. Again, for example, one of my clients, is tracking the numbers of people they hire and people who get promoted. And it was loud and clear, looking at the data, that women are hired at about the same rate, but they are promoted like 30% less in this particular organization. And people of color. People of color actually hired less, and actually men of color promoted a little bit more of all women. So looking at that data was really important to get the organization to move forward. And there was integral people who probably over a few years started collecting that data and bringing it up to top leadership. So you notice something, check it out, see if you can find data, qualitative or quantitative, that supports your gut. You might learn something. Maybe you find data and your theory isn't supported, but maybe you find data and your theory is supported. Also goes back to the question of, am I just not getting promoted? And is it because of my work? Is it because of my gender? Is it because of my background, my education level? What is holding me back? And so if you go get data and you say, wait, I'm part of a trend, 30% less women are being promoted. That speaks to a systemic issue, not just a personal issue. Right? And then I can start to have that conversation with my mentor, with leadership, other women, other men. Please don't forget allies, right? Mm-hmm. So if there's questions about gender or race, I suggest making it a broad conversation so that everybody can be part of that solution. Now, you also have to have psychological safety. The first time you bring up an issue like that, that's kind of saying, hey, this organization hasn't been fair and equitable. Maybe you do bring it up to a woman in a leadership role because you feel comfortable with that first step. But eventually you're going to want to invite the whole organization into that conversation and see where you can take a leadership role in moving the needle.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point, Connie, about the bias, right, at workplace. So many women face this at workplace. Mm-hmm. So how do they identify that there is bias? I think the data you're talking about will help to identify that. I think then the action, right? So what action specifically should they take in order to overcome that bias, right? So if there is already an existing cultural issue there, it's well, grounded in the organization, how do you really get out of it and then try to change that? Should they be changing, or should they just leave it? This is how it is in this company and I have to live with it. So what's your
I mean, I'm all for, because my job is around organizational change. However, I also realize there has to be some level of safety, and every context is different. And so I do think you need to think about take some baby steps to move forward. I know I've talked to many people in my career and I've been there too, where talking to someone might result in repercussions. And so I have to be able to navigate that. I have to test in the waters, right? Start a conversation where I feel safe, maybe build a coalition. Maybe ask if we can have a committee that investigates something, try to move forward without shame and blame, but make it an inquiry question, right? I'm wondering if we could do something as an organization that would help more women move to the top. And here's why women having a more split and equitable gender divide in an organization is good for business. Pretty much all businesses buy that right now. I mean, that information is out there. You do a quick Google search, and you can say why a heterogeneous organization is more successful than a homogeneous one. Mm-hmm. But like anything else, I think that you can develop a proposal. You can come with a solution. And the first part of the solution might be to investigate the problem more thoroughly. Sometimes people feel safer there, and then they can also be part of the investigation of the problem together. And then once you've identified that problem a little bit more concretely, then you can say, well, let's brainstorm some things we can do to move forward. But I realize it can be a sticky spot. Right. And you do have to think about your own safety and who you can trust, and maybe take some baby steps. Chaya, has anything like that worked for you in your career?
Yeah, so the bias is very common, right? Especially the gender inequality, and it took me some time in my career to even understand that I was going through something of that sort. And you talked about numbers and facts. For me, it was more when I started to talk to people around me and building that network and relationships, right? That helped me to understand what are the underlying issues in the organization. So I learned my way to open up and be more, it's you cannot hide this, right? Again, you have to be more expressive. You have to have a voice, and it's not something that you can overnight achieve it. So people have to, you have to be able to build that credibility in the organization. It takes some time, but I don't know if my route was the right way of addressing it, but I was successful. I took a little longer to address the issues. I was successful because I built my network. And I believe in this saying that says, I forget who said this, when you cannot change the existing model, instead of fighting against it, create a new model that makes the current model obsolete.
Oh, that's awesome. I love
I
that.
love that, and I believe in it. So you have to find your ways to create something that will make that current situation obsolete. And I have done that in my in my life, in my career, where I knew that it's not working out with some people. Then I would create my own network, and I try to work with people and be very expressive about what I'm trying to do, and it helped me. I think the more you're shy and hiding things, you will continue to face all these challenges. But the more expressive you are, and we try to be, when I say expressive, you don't have to debate or encounter anybody, but it's more to do with a good, healthy debate and a conversation, and being able to express how that's impacting you when somebody's doing that, and be able to say, I can help you. There has to be a win-win situation. I think that's what helped me.
Yeah, I think too, when I think about data, I think about exactly what you say. Qualitative data is also very important to me. And so, how do you learn qualitative information, right? It could be through storytelling, it could be sharing experiences, and then you start to see some themes. So you start talking with people and learning about their experiences. You'll probably notice some themes in working in a particular organization: good, bad, ugly, right? All those different kinds of themes. And once you have a theme, then you can start problem solving it, if it's a negative theme, obviously. I think helping an organization create space for sharing stories and sharing voices is so important. You can have employee resource groups. For example, you might start an employee resource group on women in tech at your organization. And so you have monthly meetings, and invite the men too. But the topics are around, barriers, or what do I need to learn, or, you explore different topics with people that you work with, and inviting leadership in to hear people's voices. You can share voices through a survey. Say, hey, let me send out a survey monkey, right? Asking employees these kinds of questions, and then having people self-identify as male or female, and then you can look at, are there different trends about how women in the organization feel versus men? So there's a variety of ways that you can start getting the conversation going, and then you've got qualitative or quantitative data to then build on an initiative, right? So, okay, so now we notice that not only do we see 30% less women getting promoted, but when we talk to women, they're feeling disrespected and ignored in meetings. So an intervention we'd like to do is a formal mentoring program for women, or some cross-gender communication education, or whatever you think the right initiative would be.
At the organization level, I think these are great points for the senior level executives to think about, to incorporate in their companies. When it comes to individuals who are in the mid-level management and they're trying to go up the ladder, how do they get access to this data? I mean, for them to understand whether it's the trend in the organization, or is it really it's my personal issue. How would they be able to distinguish that? Because they won't have access to that data.
Yeah, I think that you really have to ask for it. And if they don't have it, ask to be part of a committee that will collect it. I think that having transparent sharing knowledge and data across the organization is the definition of transparency. And for if an organization, like something I would say to a supervisor, would be if this organization is really serious, right, about equity, right, and gender equity in leadership roles, and I'm willing to be part of a driver for that. This is what I need. I need this kind of data. I need to start having conversations with people. I need a committee formed, right? So kind of back to what you said earlier, Chaya, ask for what you want and need. And I guess if they say no, then you have some decisions to make about, can you work around that barrier? They're not going to share the data. They're not going to collect the data, right? Are there other things that you can do to help yourself and others at the organization progress? Or do you start asking yourself, is this the right place for me? Or there's another option where you just pause and you find other networks and mentors outside of the organization that help strengthen you, and you continue to develop your skills, and you continue to figure out what your strengths are. And then in 6 months from now, the organization might shift and you try again. So there's many options to building your career. So if you run into a wall with one option, think about, okay, what are my other options now? My supervisor's not going to support me and go further. Okay, do I have a mentor? Do I have a network? Can I go take a class? It doesn't always have to be, I'm leaving the organization. Though that could be an option if it's not a good place for you. But think through, could be many options to help you progress. And 6 months from now, the organization might be more ready.
Yeah, great. I'm going to focus on a couple of things you said about mentor and networking. These two are very, very critical. In fact, we had a session specifically on mentorship in the past.
Awesome.
Yeah, so my question is, I know everybody knows that they have to get mentors in their career. And I have more than one mentor in my career. And I still have mentors. And it's such a beautiful experience if you have the right mentor. I say in quotes, right mentor for you. And a great mentor for someone may not be the right fit for you because all our needs are different. So what do you suggest? What tips do you have to suggest these, especially women who are trying to move up the ladder into a higher level of titles in the organization? What do you suggest them to find a mentor? What kind of mentor should they be looking for if they need to move in the leadership roles?
Yes, I think that someone that you can trust, or that at least you feel like you could develop some trust over time, someone who has maybe some similar values to yourself, and then someone who has some differences, right? So if you want to hear different perspectives, and I agree, more than one mentor. I have men and women mentors. I've mentors at different ages, younger than me, older than me. And now I call them what kind of peer mentors. I have groups of people I connect with, different ethnicities. So if I want to hear different perspectives and different stories and different strategies, I may have to look for someone who is different from me, right? So you might have to try out conversations with a variety of people to see who you click with. So I think mine has been more of, like you said earlier, Chaya, like just making myself have conversations with people, right? Call up, can I have an informational interview? Or can I talk to you about X? Or I noticed you brought X up at a meeting. Can we have coffee and chat about it? And so I just start conversations with people. And then those that seem like they're two ways and they're collaborative and that that someone also has some energy around talking to me, then I try to keep those conversations going. And in some cases, I've said, hey, can we develop a little more formal mentoring relationship? And at other times, I just develop a friendship.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So not every relationship has to be a mentorship. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think having a formal mentorship gives you a structure to the program.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we kind of take it easy and we probably may not,
Right.
yeah, follow the rules of the game. So I think it's important to have at least a structured mentorship. And again, I agree with you. Having multiple mentors help me, and this whole peer mentoring is also very powerful, especially in the business world. You know, when I network with the fellow entrepreneurs, it's much more easier to understand the challenges and find some solutions, right? So there is also this networking component you brought up, right? So mentorship is important and networking, right? So especially during this COVID situation, networking is becoming a bit challenging. Everything is online, and you don't have that personal touch in online networking, right? So what tips do you have for people who are especially looking into growing into leadership roles? What tips do you have for them in terms of how to network and what kind of associations or groups they should be networking with, and what should they be doing with respect to increasing their contacts?
Yeah, I think that's really good. I'll share something that's worked for me. Um, I usually have some kind of project or some kind of theme that I want to work on. Okay. So let's say I'm developing a leadership program, or I want to develop deeper skills. I want that to be a area of expertise for me. So this could be like a specific coding skill, or maybe it's more of a leadership skill. And then I find networks, associations that give workshops and ideas and lectures around that skill, right? So I would join that. For example, I joined the Positive Psychology network out of University of Pennsylvania because I want to get better at using positive psychology in my organizational development work. And then what I'll do is I may have a question about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And so then I purposely go and find 5 or 6 entrepreneurs I can talk to. Shai has been one of those people for me in the past. And so I often figure out what skill or interest or question I want answered. And then I really choose my networking around that. Not everybody does it that way, but my networking might change a little bit from year to year because of that. And then there's some associations that I stay with over time, like the Transformative Learning Association. I do adult learning work. I've stayed with them over time, but I might dip in and out of some other organizations over time, depending on the focus of my work. The other thing that I've done is I've deliberately set up a peer mentoring group, and it was other women who have various backgrounds, and we all said that we wanted to work on a goal over the course of a year. And then we met monthly, supporting and talking about each other's goals. So I've also developed, they're still friends and I talk with them, but we don't always have our formal monthly meetings. We might do that for a year, then we stop. Then someone starts it up again and we do something formal for 6 months and then we stop. But I have a strong peer mentoring group that I created out of friendships and colleagues.
Yeah, that's very important. And even in SheTek, we are promoting this mentorship, right? So all these women who are engaged with SheTek now, we are kicking off this whole mentorship program because mentorship is so important, right? Just education is not enough, just your experience, but people who have experienced, gone through that path would be able to help provide right guidance for all of us, right? Even in my case, I always, when I attended these panel speakers, and all the keynote speakers, when they speak and they talk about their background, it's so important to understand someone's background, because if you know that they have come from the bottom up, they are the people you want to talk to, right? Because they have gone through this path and learned from them how they reached to this higher position, even though they started at a very low position, right? So there's so much you can learn from them. So I always go after those people who have those stories. So it's important to listen to other stories also. Yeah. So great inputs, Connie, and great points. I am now letting Meg to join if we have any questions.
Hi, everybody. I'm back. We
Hi,
definitely have
Meg.
some questions from our audience. They're really excited. Our first question comes from someone in our audience named Zuhal, who asked, my first question would be, is a managerial position similar to actually being in leadership? Or can a manager not necessarily be a leadership position? They were curious about your thoughts on that.
Shaya, you want to jump in, and then
Yeah,
I can jump in
I
after.
can. I think the way I see the difference between leadership and individual contribution, I don't want to use the word manager. Mostly, I don't believe in titles, but so the individual contributors are the people who just do their work, their job. They deliver what they are supposed to deliver. They're not accountable or responsible for others' performance or their output. So whether you call it a manager or a leader, when it comes to that, you have to be able to lead a project or towards a goal. You're leading a team, which also means you are the sole responsible person to answer or being accountable for certain tasks or a group of tasks, something that you're working on. But you being a leader, you're also not only leading, you are actually helping others to move along with you and perform well. So you're also helping, supporting the team that you're working with. So we are all trying to achieve a common goal towards success, right? So the leader is someone who is not only just individually contributing, but also working within a team and helping them. Doesn't mean that a leader has to be at the front all the time. You can even help others to move forward, just being there and giving them all the resources they need and the support they need. I think that's the difference I see, irrespective of whether you call it a management role or a senior manager or executive level. You can be a leader at any level. Or someone can choose, I don't want to bother with the rest of the resources teams. I just want to be at my desk, do my job. You could be an individual contributor. But doesn't mean that you're not a leader. You're not just utilizing your leadership skills. That's how I see it.
Yeah,
Connie,
I would agree with that. And what you just said at the end, don't let a position dictate how you express leadership. Any position you can have leadership, it is definitely a mindset. And it's going to take a little bit more gumption. It's going to take a little bit more confidence. But let's say you're an individual contributor and there's 4 levels above you.
yeah.
Still come into work thinking, I am a leader here at this organization, which means I can help support other people. I can be creative. I have set so many proposals. I'm like the proposal queen. I have an idea. I write it up in a little executive summary. I make an appointment with somebody and I'm like, I want to share with you my idea. I know there's 5 levels ahead of me and maybe 3 people have already talked to you about this. But here's an idea I have. So don't just come with a problem, come with your proposed solution. And no matter what level you are, think of yourself as a leader who can make a difference in the organization.
Yeah, great point. Yep. I hope we answered Zuhal's question.
Yes, we have a few more questions. That was from Zuhal, who just said thank you in our chat.
Awesome.
All right, so we had I really like this question here. It was from an anonymous viewer. Who is a better leader? One with great subject matter expertise and less people management skills, or a great people person and less of an expert, or both? Or is there something else in addition to that?
Wow.
I know, it was such a good question. Like, that's something to chew on.
I would jump in by saying subject matter expertise alone doesn't make you a leader. So you have to have the people skills and you have to have the emotional intelligence. You might not be a best fit if certain subject matter expertise is needed for a particular role. If I was going to give advice to hiring, I would say figure out the competencies you need for that position. But it's actually can be easier sometimes to teach a technical skill than it can be to teach emotional intelligence, and a caring attitude and how to be a mentor. So I lean on those skills being essential if you're leading people. I don't know, Chaya.
No, I mean, those are all great points, Connie. I kept nodding my head. I think one thing you mentioned about the emotional intelligence, it's the key. When I interview people in senior positions, I look at they don't need to be subject matter experts. All they need to know they have to know where to find answers, right? Instead of bringing the problem to me, bring the solutions, options to me. Don't just bring the problem. So they should know how to find solutions. And also empathy is the biggest thing, right? So if for you to be able to support others to grow, a leader's job is not just self growth, right? It's really helping the team to grow and succeed. So that empathy is a big element for me when I talk to people. I look for that as well. And if you know where to find answers and you have the empathy, and also the third important thing for me is the accountability. Don't pass the ball to others or just show fingers at others. You are the one who has to be accountable for your team, and you can take that whatever may be the issue, you have to take that responsibility and make your team successful. And if they have that kind of quality in them, I think, as you said, learning the skill is not difficult, technical skill, and then learning about the environment or the domain expertise, you will be able to get them. But I think these are the innate qualities that I look for a leader.
That's awesome. I just added some books that people might be interested to chat.
Awesome. Yeah.
We just got a quick follow-up question to that. They ask what if you have a lot of subject matter expertise but haven't managed people before? Is there any way that you can demonstrate to a hiring manager that you do have that correct EQ and IQ?
Absolutely. There's actually one of my mentors. I developed what she called the 4-pillar practice for development, and so and if you work on those 4 pillars, you can definitely demonstrate your skills. One is taking on some leadership roles. So make sure you're getting a chance to lead a committee, to lead a project, so you can demonstrate your skills by actually taking on a leadership role. Another is being involved in a mentoring relationship, either a mentor, a peer mentor, or a mentee. So because you're showing that you want to learn and that you're committed to your own learning. Another is teaming with people. So if you can collaborate and be on a team, you can also demonstrate, right, how well you work with others. And lastly is inquiry, what Chaya just talked about. Can you problem solve? Can you research a subject and come up with a solution? So make sure that you're doing those things consistently. And I always track what you do. Make a little spreadsheet and be like, I led this team and these were some outcomes. It can just be some notes. So when you do go and talk to a supervisor or a champion or a mentor, you can say, here's what I've been working on and here's some of the outcomes. And that's great for interviewing. That's great for helping people understand what you're capable of.
Yep. It's important to keep track of what you're doing. Yes. We often forget that.
Right. We've got one last question from one of our very frequent attendees. Anne has attended many of our episodes of The Outlet. She wants to know, what should someone do if in a meeting their voice for a solution is ignored? I noticed that if someone else comes back with the same suggestion that I mentioned and is given attention, what type of behavior is being displayed, and do you have any recommendations for that kind of situation?
So if I
jump in, Pi.
I just want to understand the question better. So is it about Can you repeat that question for me? Thank you.
Yes. Let me grab it. She asked, what should someone do if in a meeting their voice for a solution is ignored? She's noticed that someone else will sometimes come back with the same suggestion that she's mentioned, and then that person gets the attention. What type of leaders or what type of behavior should they display in that situation? Or do you have any recommendations for that? They want to appear as a leader, even though that's an uncomfortable situation to be in.
Yeah, so it's very common problem. I think I heard this from many women. And in fact, I personally experienced it as well. When you're sitting in a meeting room, you try to say something and then you're ignored, and the same thing is said by a man, it's usually accepted. I think that's where I was talking about, really creating that environment where you feel comfortable with. Maybe one or two times you're ignored, but you need to really collaborate with those people and then establish the relationship. It's important that you establish the relationship for you to be comfortable. And to make your voice, you don't have to really speak out loud or raise your voice. I think some of the techniques that I used to just sit like this. They would not give me a chance to say anything, but I would be just holding my hand up like that. And then at some point they have to say, Chaya, do you have anything to say? And at that moment, usually people are very quiet because they're expecting you to say something. And that's your moment. Say it. And people would have to listen to it. And nobody can say that that was their idea because it's pretty obvious. And the second thing is, when people don't ignore that, even they're ignoring you, raising your hand, you can always say, can I say something? Can I get a moment to say something? Demand your time. You have every right to ask for your time to express yourself. And I think a lot of times we are very shy, or we just accept and sit back quietly and we complain that we are not given a chance to speak. But you know what? Take a chance to speak. And that's how it worked for me.
I love that. I know we're running up on time. The only thing I would add is, because I love all of that, ask to debrief the meeting.
Yeah.
Ask the leader of the meeting, I'd really like to debrief that meeting with you. And so that you're always doing that, because that's going to put pressure on the leader of the meeting to make sure all voices are heard equitably the next time. And it happens again. I want to debrief the meeting. I'm going to talk to my supervisor about the meeting. I'm going to stay on it.
All right. Yep. All right. So what I'm looking to do right now is I'm just gonna pop up our second poll just real quick. If you're interested in attending a workshop or a longer session where we work on developing our leadership qualities together in a more structured environment, put a yes on there. If you're not interested, that's fine too. You can just say no. I won't come to your house and look at you significantly or anything like that. I'm going to pop up my screen share real quick also while we've got that. Tell you all a little bit about SheTek, well, if any of you have just a few more moments to spend with me here. My little poll doesn't want to move away. But I just wanted to let you know, invite everyone that's watching us today to come join us in the SheTek Power community. You'll find us over at shetek.net. The SheTek mission is, again, to increase the number of women in the tech staffing pipeline and allies as well. And we do this through engaging, empowering, and employing women who are just like you. You can engage with us on our active discussion board, where we post new topics to discuss things that are relevant to you in your career. You can even join our follow-up discussion. You can see that it's popped up right on your screen when you close out of Zoom. It's the Outlet 10 Convo. Post your questions. We'll get some follow-ups to anything we didn't get to today. We'll have some great conversations. You can empower us with our community resources. We offer trainings in top tech skills, like our new 8-week Data Curator Bootcamp launching on March 27th, or you can take shorter training sessions in Tableau, Salesforce, DevOps, and more. Increase your skills and bulk up your resume. You can catch our on-demand trainings on our YouTube channel, use our free downloadable worksheets to set goals, develop self-branding strategies, and you can use ours for the tools that you need to increase your skills overall. Finally, you can get employed with our community careers page where we post hot new tech opportunities around New Jersey, New York, and the rest of the United States. From highly skilled and paid roles to entry-level positions, we've got something for everyone. Stop by and find your next job in leadership today. Thank you so much to everyone who joined us today for episode 10, Lunch and Learn with SheTek's Extraordinary Women. And thanks to our guests, Dr. Connie Watson and Chaya Pamula of SheTek and PamTen. Stay plugged in with us. Join us in the community for a follow-up conversation. And follow us on our social media for updates. Talk to you all soon, and thank you again.
Thank you, Meg. Thanks, everyone. Connie,
Thank you.
It's such a pleasure
Thank you for having me.
having this conversation with you. Thank you.